All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today we're going to go over the new Casey Anthony docu-series on Peacock titled Where the Truth Lies. Oh my God, where at least in the little minds of whoever made it, they feel like they brilliantly proved that Casey isn't guilty of anything, okay? She's a victim, of course. How could we all have missed it? And the theory they put forth over the 3.5 hour long thing is that Casey didn't do anything. No, it was her father, who they say is a evil pedophile that most likely murdered his granddaughter while abusing her, and any incriminating, mind-boggling, bizarre behavior that Casey did once her poor daughter went missing can be easily chalked up and explained away because she was under the evil spell of her maniacal pedophile father, George. Whoa. And the whole thing pretends at the beginning to be neutral. It's a documentary, journalism, searching for the truth. And then at the end, it's wildly pro-Casey. They're deeming George a pedophile with very thin evidence, mostly just Casey, a proven liar, saying he is. But even the beginning is pro-Casey, and the whole thing is much more of a PR revitalizer attempt than a documentary. And you know that because the music that they use and also the amount of time spent on certain topics is maybe the biggest giveaway. First, the music. Anytime someone's going, I don't know, I think Casey might have something to do with it, the music is off-putting and intense. And then anytime someone's going, wait a minute, maybe Casey didn't have anything to do with it, or Casey's crying, telling some story, the music switches to uplifting piano chords, portraying a long, dark storm, and finally, after all of these years, the sun is breaking through the clouds and hitting your face. Wow. And with spending certain amount of time on certain topics, by far the most interesting part of the whole documentary is, as far as I know, the first time Casey Anthony tells what she remembers from the fateful day where Kaylee went missing. So I would have spent the whole episode, at least an hour. Here she is telling what she remembers. It's not much, of course. What she remembers from that important day. If you're doing a documentary on this whole thing, that is by far the most important day. Those events, let's break it down. What happened? And they maybe spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes total on that, and then quickly moving on. I think they spent the same amount of time on what Casey remembers about the fateful day as they did where Casey drives up to her childhood home and looks out the window and sighs and is melancholy and cries and then says, I'm done with this place, and symbolically drives away. Wow. Which, okay, cinematically, maybe it's something, but as far as trying to figure out what the hell happened with this case, it's nothing. And the whole thing comes off to me as one giant lie cry. She goes on and on. It's got the most hoax vibes I've ever heard. And while I'm listening to Casey go on and on and on, all I hear is this. And so, if you are going to, over a 3.5 hour long thing, end with her lawyer and her and everybody saying, yep, we solved it, Father George is a murderous pedophile, you got some explaining to do. If that's where you end up at the end, realistically, if anyone is going to buy that, I can't imagine too many people did, but if that is where you want people to end up, you have to explain a few things. One, you have to explain why Casey is possibly the biggest liar ever in the world. And it's nothing new where someone does something and then goes into full lie mode to try to get out of it, to try not to go to prison forever. We've all done something and then tried to get out of it lying. Nothing new about that, but somehow, even though it's the most common thing in the world, Casey set herself apart in a way that is unforgettable. The part that I will never forget and that sets her apart is not only did she not do anything in the 31 days, but once everybody, oh my gosh, Kaylee is missing, once everybody knew and was trying to find her and trying to help, it's not like Casey sat there neutral or tried to help. She sent everybody on a wild goose chase to hell. Yeah, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, the nanny. Yeah, the nanny did have a drum set. And I worked at Universal. That is the part I will never forget, where she tells the detectives, yeah, I work at Universal, of course. And the detectives say, okay, well, meet us at Universal. We want to see your office. And she shows up. Imagine showing up to Universal, you got detectives and walking in with them thinking, yeah, how is this going to end? You're walking by waving at people that work at Universal. They're thinking, who is this lady? Walking down the hall, yep, my office is right over here. Just a few more steps. Yep, we're almost there. Okay, hey, there's that, my friend from work. We eat lunch together. And then at the end of the hall, yeah, I don't work here. That is really something else. So they have to explain away why she is a beyond mind-boggling liar, lied about everything, was making up stories out of her butt, sending everybody in the total wrong direction. So if you're going to end with Casey's innocent, she's good, it was the dad, you got to say something about that. And then two, you got to explain away the 31 days where a mother had no idea, according to Casey, where her child was and didn't do anything and went and lived with her boyfriend, which she was 19 years old. And having a kid at that age is tough because your friends are living in these college roommate type situations. Yeah, let's hit the bong and watch another movie and go out tonight, and we're young and free, and yeah, we're young adults. And all of a sudden Casey's at her parents' house where you always feel like a kid no matter what, and she doesn't get to live in the college type young adult roommate situation, and it's a bummer. And so you gotta, again, if you're gonna end where now Casey's good, it was the dad, you gotta have a reasonable explanation for the 31 days. And then you have to, even though they really didn't want to and Casey really didn't want to, you gotta talk about the fateful day. If she's got nothing to hide, let's hear about that day. That's why we're all here. That's, if you don't have a clear memory, and if that day doesn't add up in people's minds, it doesn't matter what the explanation is. It doesn't matter what you think her father is. If that day doesn't sit well with people, where everyone's left going, no, I'm not going to believe that. You think I'm some sort of idiot? And so those are the three big things. And of course, the uplifting piano chords are coming in, turn up the uplifting piano chords. They're trying to do it with the music. They're trying to, all right, cut that part short. Yeah, that's not looking good. And we'll just go on and on about how Casey misses her daughter. And all right, so let's get into it. How they attempt to explain away that Casey is a liar beyond anything really that anyone has ever seen is because, drum roll, she was conditioned to lie because her dad was pretending to be the patriarch, but really he wasn't making as much money as they were all pretending he was. And really, her mom was making a lot of the money. And so they were presenting as a healthy, normal family when really money was tight, and possibly dad took some of the money and gambled it away, and therefore she turned into the biggest liar of all time. Come on. Come on. None of that is even that crazy. Most families are dealing with something at least that and pretending everything is good. Everything is good with us. We're a great family. None of that. To think that that is so wild and so, yeah, that explains why Casey made up Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez and everything that Casey did, because her dad wasn't making as much money as everybody thought he was. That's nothing. That is probably more normal than most families, what they're hiding. Everything's good, and the kids don't end up anything like Casey. Secondly, they used the defense team's experts, so of course they're pro Casey, but they, which I think doesn't do their argument any favors and ends up contradicting, but they put forth the theory that Casey has no personality defects. Not at all. Nothing is mentally fit as a fiddle. There's nothing. She's not a psychopath. She's not a sociopath. She doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder. Nothing. The defense team's experts proved it. And so that is just over and done with, which, remember that, because later I think that almost hurts the case. So, okay, see, we have experts that were hired by the defense team, and that's what they said, so that must be true. Okay, and then we get to the 31 days. How do you explain that away? A mother that is mentally fit as a fiddle has no idea where her daughter is. She, at the beginning, said that the nanny that didn't exist took her, and she just didn't tell anyone. That's the story she went with. So how does a mentally person that's healthy mentally, how does that happen? Well, then you got to go to the fateful day. And again, if I was making this documentary, it would have been a full episode on this. And so, as far as I know, for the first time, according to Casey, this is what happened on the day that her child, Kaylee Anthony, goes missing. She said she was at her parents' house, and she already had set up that her dad had molested her, had come in at night, and from ages 12 to 15, and brutally molested her, which is, if that's true, that is awful. Again, heartbreakingly, that's more common than a lot of, society wants to believe. But again, if that's true, that's awful. But that's 4 years before the Kaylee goes missing. So as sad as that is, if it is true, it's hard to believe anything that Casey said. Again, that doesn't deserve that Kaylee, the daughter, that doesn't affect what happened to Kaylee, even if it is true. But according to Casey, her dad from 12 to 15 would come into her room and molest her, and then also her brother would come into her room and molest her. And also she said that Kaylee, the dad, most likely was from a rape incident. So she's really setting up that, hey, listen, did I act weird? But yes, but I was pretty much molested and raped by everybody that I know. And therefore, if I acted weird once my daughter went missing, it's because of that. Which, if it is true, that's heartbreaking and awful. But I also get a feeling that people that are truly conniving and manipulating on a sickening level, the way Casey is and the way we've seen other people, they tend to figure out that they can take really heavy subjects like rape and molestation, subjects that carry a lot of weight, that if you're being interviewed and all of a sudden you're being pushed back against a wall, you can say, I was raped and molested, and all of a sudden the journalist that was like, okay, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to ask some hard-hitting questions and I'm going to push her and I'm going to make sure she answers these for the first time. And then all of a sudden, the conniving, manipulative person is going, rape, rape, molestation, and the journalist that thought, I'm going to get in there and have some courage and ask the tough questions, all of a sudden the thought is, all right, I guess we'll move on. I'm not going to press her on being molested because of how much weight that pulls. We also saw that with Jussie Smollett, when that interview that he did where he was starting to really go down in flames. She asked him, this part doesn't make sense. And he's going, they called me the N-word. They called me the N-word. And that's another one. There's so much history and weight behind that. All of a sudden she's going, all right, Jesse, let's move on. And so Casey set up that she was lying about working at Universal because she was secretly working as a bartender to save up money because she had to get out of her parents' house because her dad attacked her and she didn't trust him with anything and didn't trust him with her daughter and had to get out of the house because she didn't want what he did to her to happen to her daughter. And that one time, maybe he was having an affair and the mom kicked him out of the house and she said, for the first time, I felt safe. And so here we have this strong, independent mother, Casey, with a plan that she was executing to get away from her dad that victimized her. And so that's what she sets up. And so the fateful day, which it's a contradiction. So if that is really what was happening, she said that she goes to sleep to take a nap on the day and that Kaylee was sleeping in the bed with her. She wakes up and Kaylee is gone. Oh yeah, first, before we go any farther, once the documentary is building, she's going to talk about that day and she's going, I know you're going to ask about it. I know this is what everything is leading to. Okay, let's talk about it. But I will say, I don't remember much. And she didn't say that about anything else. She remembers everything else pretty much exactly. The people making the movie can go, how did you feel when your lawyer said this? And she remembers exactly how she felt during certain lines that were said. Everything, the memory's clear except the day getting a little foggy. But she goes, I was taking a nap. And just that, if you don't trust your father and you have all of this horrible history of sexual abuse, are you really going to take a nap or with the door not locked? It starts to get a little bit hard to believe, but all right, we'll believe that. So she's taking a nap. Daughter's taking a nap with her. She wakes up. Kaylee is not there. And then I think that this part, you can tell that Casey starts to lie because she goes, I woke up and we started searching the house. I searched my brother's room. I searched the bathroom. And it starts to sound like all of her lies where she's saying too many details. Of course you searched the bathroom and all of the rooms. Why are you listing the rooms? It's a little ranch style house. All right. You're over explaining. So she's going, I searched here and I searched there and I went out into the backyard, and the person that's making the documentary goes, did you see her in the pool? And she goes, I didn't have to. And then she says her dad walked up to her with her child's limp, cold, lifeless, wet body, handed her child's lifeless body. She sat there, oh my gosh, and then the dad quickly took her child away from her and said, don't worry, everything is going to be okay, and then disappeared with the body. And because all of a sudden the smart, independent adult is making all of this money on the side to get away from this horrible guy that abused her, that she doesn't trust with anything and hates and everything, all of a sudden now she trusts her father, that she said, when he said that everything is going to be okay, I trusted him. I was that little girl that was abused by him again. And when he said that, I believed him. And this is where I think it contradicts, where if she was a mentally sound person that had nothing to do with it and didn't want her daughter to die and really had nothing to do with it, she would have acted much different. If they would have said, yeah, we don't think she had anything to do with it, but she is a psychopath, or she does have something that allowed her to hold her dead child and to have it all immediately taken away and then just be able to live her life. I'm going to go stay at my boyfriend's. I think that's a contradiction, that they set up all the head experts going, no, she's fine. Everything checked out normally. Think about stories where you hear where a mother either hears the news that their child is killed or has handed the body. It's nothing like that. A mentally sound person, that is just the dumbest, most unbelievable, credibility shattering story I've ever heard. So then she just totally believes, yeah, my dad said everything was going to be okay, so I believed him. She doesn't trust this guy. So you would say, what do you mean everything's going to be okay? Are you bringing her to the hospital? Either you're bringing her to the hospital or you're bringing her to some other health expert or something. What do you mean she's going to be okay? You wouldn't just take that simple sentence, don't worry, everything's going to be okay with her, and then carry on. And then when finally everybody does find out, you send everybody on a wild goose chase in the absolute wrong direction. And then when everybody finds out that all of what you were saying is wrong, then you chalk it up to, I just trusted my dad that I don't trust. Starts to be completely unbelievable. And really, if you are going to buy that it wasn't Casey and that her dad did it and is a pedophile and the whole 9 yards, that's the part that you have to buy, that you have to say, yeah, I truly believe that, is that Casey's dad handed her the lifeless body. She held it for a second and then gave it away. And then her dad said, no worries, babe. Everything's going to be great. Just trust me. She's going to live. We're going to bring her back. Everything's going to be okay. Just live your life and trust me. That's what you have to stomach. And if that's what you believe, I wish you well in life, but I think you're going to get duped and tricked and scammed all over the place, because that really is just not believable. And then what they didn't show really at all is the Casey jailhouse phone calls, which I've made 2 videos about, with her parents. So if that really is the dynamic, that the evil pedophile father murdered the daughter, handed it to Casey, said, don't worry, Casey, I'm going to take care of it, took her away, Casey believed it, all right, I trust you. That dynamic would have come out in those jailhouse phone calls. It's long, it's unedited, everybody watched it, and you would have sat there and thought, something is off with this dynamic between the parents and her. The dad is acting in a certain way, and she seems like she's just under control by him or his spell. And really, it feels like the complete opposite. It feels like the parents are tiptoeing around, scared of Casey, going, Casey, are we going to find her? We want to find her today. What are we doing? And Casey's going, maybe, I think we might. I think we will. I have a feeling that she's close, but I don't want to say anything. I'm going to write you guys letters and send them in the snail mail. And they're going, Casey, we don't have time for your stupid letters in the snail mail. And Casey can get nasty quick and shut them down. If they push a little bit too hard, well, should we talk to this person? She goes, who? That guy's bitch ex-wife? And they go, okay, Casey. And the way her dad is talking to her, going, Casey, I want to get you out today, and we want to find Kaylee today, and you got to get out of the jail. And Casey's in no rush. He goes, I know, if I need to stay in here, it's okay. In a way, I'm more protected in here. And they're looking at her like, none of this is making sense. And unless they are the greatest criminal minds, actors that the world has ever seen, it just doesn't add up. The story that Casey puts forth about under the spell of her evil dad, he told me that everything was going to be okay, doesn't add up. And the story would have been much more believable, and I'm sure Casey knows this, if she could have gone with the story of, I woke up from a nap, Casey's not there, we searched everywhere, and she was gone. Maybe she snuck out into the backyard and a suspicious character snatched her up, some pervert snatched her up and took my kid and disappeared. But the reason she can't go with that is because of how she acted in those 31 days. Because there's no excuse. Why didn't you call 911 then? So the only way that she can attempt to explain the bizarre 31 days of not doing anything and then sending everyone in the wrong direction is you have to say, I thought she was okay. My dad, who did it, gave me the lifeless body, but then said, everything's going to be okay. You don't worry about it. And I trusted him because I was that little girl again under his spell. It's like, come on, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. So that's how they explain, though, why she lies. Totally, because her family dealt with some things, so therefore she lies about everything. She was conditioned to lie and to put on a happy face, and that the 31 days, they had the experts say, no, she doesn't have a mental disorder. That's normal grieving for a young person. When something bad happens to a young person, they pretend like nothing happens, which, all right, yeah, maybe a little bit, but you're talking about a mother's bond with a child, and according to you, a mentally sound mother's bond with a child. It gets into some different territory, and if you can't see that, then you got to have your head examined. And then, why did you not try to help, Casey? Well, that's because of the dad, and she trusted the dad that she said she didn't trust. And when he said she was going to be okay, and they breezed through the day it happened. Yeah, I don't know. I woke up from a nap. She wasn't there. My dad gave her the lifeless body and then took the lifeless body away. Healthy mothers probably wouldn't even let go of the child, or would be like, we're calling 911 right now. What do you mean she's going to be okay? Are you rushing her to the hospital? Nope, whisked away. All right, I'm going to my boyfriend's, and I'm going to make up a story about Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. So once they feel like they have that nice and explained away, makes sense to us, no need for questioning, then they get into the dad and how he is the evil pedophile that they think that he is. And their evidence for that is that he abused Casey, which we'll probably never know if it's true or not. It's hard to believe Casey, but the fact that, according to Casey, he came into her room at night and abused her, so maybe it was just moving down the line. And a couple of the big epiphany moments were, one, George said that he missed the smell of his granddaughter when she was gone. Whoa, that definitely makes him a pedophile? What? And so he said that was like a big one for him. Casey's watching it going, why would he say that? And two, they have a little clip of those jailhouse phone calls that if you show the whole thing, it makes Casey look terrible. But they cherry-picked a little clip where George is going, I wish I was a better father. I wish I was a better grandfather. See? He's admitting it. Well, I don't know. When something horrible like a child is missing and is most likely dead, that's kind of the attitude that normal people start to have. You start wishing that you would have done little tiny things differently. Maybe Casey wouldn't be such a psycho if I would have done. You could take that a million different ways. The way that her parents are talking to her, on the jailhouse phone, they're almost having to tiptoe and talk to her like you would talk to someone like Daryl Brooks, just someone that is so manipulative that they're not even attached to reality. And if you do press them on any of their nonsense, they get nasty and mean. And then all of a sudden you're going, okay, Casey, all right. And so yeah, they deem George the guy that did it, and the last, really, in their eyes, what proves that he is the maniacal, abusive, murderous pedophile that they think he is because he testified against Casey. Which, why would you testify against your daughter if it wasn't actually you and you were trying to skirt the whole thing and blame it on someone else? And they're going, why would a father be trying to get his daughter the death penalty? The death penalty. He was trying to get his daughter the death penalty. They were going on and on about that. But if you're going to go on and on about that and talk about nothing about how it's possible that with the evidence they had, they overcharged. Going for first-degree murder with as little as they know with what happened. The baby was in a swamp for a month. That took down the evidence, and really they just didn't know a lot. And so they, the charges weren't easy to get, and they didn't talk about any of that. They just talked about, nope, the charges that were put forth were perfect, and the jury didn't think it was her, and therefore, case closed. And I always thought that George just was tired of Casey's nonsense. They went along with their nonsense on those calls and for days, and it's just they're sending them in this direction, that direction, and the made-up nanny, and being really manipulative and horrible. And I always figured that at a certain point, maybe even as a parent, you would say, I'm not going to be dragged around on this absurd, totally made-up nonsense anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to sit there and pretend I believe even my own daughter anymore. I'm switching to my granddaughter, the innocent, beautiful girl that was killed and shoved into a laundry bag and dumped in the swamp. I'm switching to her, and I want justice for my granddaughter. My daughter is a lying, conniving, lost cause, and I'm gonna testify. That's the way I always took it. Maybe it's what they said and he did it, and it was this evil plan, and then he was going to take down his daughter and blame it on her and then ride off into the sunset because he got away with it. But like I said at the beginning, if you're going to believe all of that, if you're going to believe the story that is put forth in the documentary, you have to believe that on the day that Kaylee went missing, she woke up, oh my gosh, my daughter's not there, and then looked in the bathroom, and then looked in her brother's room, and I don't know, it's getting a little foggy. You know how those days are. Can't remember much on that day. Went into the backyard. Her dad, who she said she didn't trust, hands her the lifeless baby. She looks at it, okay, hands it away to her dad, and then the guy that she doesn't trust, she trusts with the daughter that she loves more than anything, when he just says, she's gonna be okay. That's what you have to believe, and I don't, and I won't ever, and that's where I'm going to cut it off. Interested to hear what you guys have to say. Why? Stive and why? See you next time. Shamita.